Hey Maddsters! So hopefully you guys know by now, but I am planning to study abroad for winter 2022. So I leave for Copenhagen, Denmark in literally 1 week. So I haven't gone abroad yet. I don't know the experience, but I will be vlogging and making a ton of videos. So stay tuned. But I wanted to make a video about the application process for study abroad because there is a lot that goes into that, and there are a lot of things that I wish that I knew before I went and did it all. So I'm mostly going to focus on LSA, which they go through CGIS, which is kind of like the main, I would say, easiest way to study abroad. I know Ross's process is very competitive and like pretty difficult. I know you can study abroad in Kines, nursing, stamps, I believe requires a study abroad. I don't know much about those programs, but I do know a lot about LSA, so I'm going to focus it towards that and just the general overall application process and my tips for that. I hope this is helpful for when you guys are applying and looking into programs. It is a really long process. I'm feeling very overwhelmed because I literally leave to go live in another country for 5 months in a week. But here we go. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions about my application process.
Okay, so I made a whole little presentation for this to help make it easier to understand. So hopefully this is helpful, and I will put it in the description below as well. Basically, here's your little timeline. The actual timeline and dates depends on the person and what program they're going to. So I can't really give you a specific by January 1 you need to do this. It really is dependent on when you study abroad, what programs you're looking at, everything. But here are kind of the steps that I would recommend going through. So first is the first step session. So this is mandatory for CGIS. I personally did it during my freshman orientation, like the summer before my freshman year. That was when it was in person, super easy. I don't even know what they talked about. It was like an hour and a half. Now they're super even easier because it's just on Zoom. So you just sign up for a time slot, I believe, and they do it probably like multiple appointments a week. So just go on their website and you just need to do it once and then you can study abroad. So this is mandatory though for CGIS. So your next step is to figure out your classes. So to do this, I would say talk to your advisor, your academic advisor, talk to your major advisor. So like, for example, my psychology major, like I would talk to them, and also run your audit to see where you are. Most students do fulfill their distribution, like their humanities, natural science, race, and ethnicity abroad, just because those are the more gen ed requirements rather than their major requirements, just because major requirements might have issues transferring over. So here are kind of the options that you can do. So like I said, the distribution requirements, most people do that abroad just because it gives you much more of an opportunity to go really anywhere in the world, because most abroad places will have your basic writing courses or just like social science courses. Some people fulfill language requirements. I really wanted to do my French classes in the summer of 2020, but because of COVID, obviously everything got shut down, couldn't go. So I had to do that on campus. But I really did want to go to France. For me personally, I will be fulfilling my major and minor requirements in Copenhagen. I kind of did this backwards, where freshman and sophomore year, I was very aggressive with my distribution. And literally the end of sophomore year, they're like, you need to choose a major. And so I had already taken some psych classes, and I'm like, okay, I'll just do psych. So now my junior and senior year, all I have to do are psych requirements. So I ended up at Copenhagen basically because it fulfilled all of my major requirements. This was kind of bad on my part, just because I had to find programs that had the psych major requirements that would also transfer over. I really pigeonholed myself. So like Denmark was pretty much the only program that fit into everything that I needed, versus if I had the distribution requirements still left over, I could pretty much go anywhere. So that's just something to think about. It just ended up for me this way just because I kind of did things backwards. But either way, it still works. In order to do this, I would say talk to your advisors and talk to the CGIS advisors and see, like for psych majors, where are the popular destinations that they normally go to, because it'll be easier for you to kind of figure things out. But once you kind of have an idea of what classes you want to fulfill abroad, you're going to start researching programs. Number one, you need to find multiple programs that fulfill your requirements, because they're, especially with COVID, like some programs might be getting canceled, some might just, not go, some, I don't know. There's a lot of issues with COVID, especially. So I would recommend with finding as many programs as you can, and to have backups and make sure that like you are all set to go anywhere. So for me personally, obviously the one I'm currently going with, it's called DIS, which is the Danish Institute for Study Abroad. I actually had no idea what it was. I should have read. I didn't even know what it meant, stood for, until this video, to be honest. Apparently it's an actual study abroad institute. So some are like mine, where it's a study abroad institute mostly geared towards students studying abroad. So it's like a bunch of students in the US go to Denmark, they study with like others, some international students, some Danish students, but it's more of like a study abroad system, versus others where you're like going to college with like other kids in that college. So it'd be like an international student coming to the University of Michigan. So there's different programs that you can go through. I do like mine because they're so geared to study abroad. They're very helpful, very hands-on, and really help you throughout the process. So that is nice. So you're going to research the programs and figure out which one you like the best, but you are going to have to go and use MCompass. MCompass is just, oh my gosh. Let me show you guys. Here is the CGIS website. First of all, if you guys know Michigan IT, like Michigan websites are just terrible. I just hate them so much. But you can go through this website and kind of see what they offer, which is nice. And otherwise, it'll direct you to MCompass. So here is my homepage, but so here we go. Say I'm looking for a program that I want to do. Just play around on this website. It's terrible. I hate it. It's so poorly set up, so hard to navigate. Like you start searching and nothing comes up. So what I did was go to map search. And this was extremely tedious. Do not recommend. I clicked on the region I wanted to go to. And in here, like say I want to go to France. I like click on the country. And this is all stuff through CGIS, some through engineering, Knies, SMTD, Ross. So, but basically I went through all of these, and like say I wanted to do university study in France, you click on the program, academics, and then you have to like go through every single, like all the websites, and basically find like the syllabus. I'm not going to go through this all, but you have to find the course offerings and see if it'll transfer over. So when I was doing this, I kind of made like, this is what I had to fulfill on campus, and this is what I was looking for abroad. So I made lists of every single psych class and everything, every program that I could find. Like there's this one, University College London, that's it, whatever. And so basically with this, I had to email my psych advisor this list along with the syllabi from whatever I could find online in order to see if it got approved. So that was hard, because especially for this third part, you had to like, I had like email messages, like 30 emails long, just going back and forth, like, okay, here's a list of 10 classes, like what will count, and he sends back, oh, this will count for this, and it just keeps going. And I'm like, okay, here's another program in Italy, like, will this count? And it just goes back and forth. How you have to verify that your classes will transfer over and fulfill whatever specific credit you need. It is just so tedious, and I wish I could just do it instead of bothering my like advisor, but they don't give you that option. So I was very frustrated with that. But make sure that your abroad classes will transfer over and give you credit, because it's nothing worse than like taking a class that counts for nothing, but you need it to graduate. So be in contact, set up appointments with every single advisor, like set up Zoom calls and just be like, here are the classes I'm taking, or here's what I want to fulfill. Like, will these classes count? Because each program is different and like not all classes are accepted. So I would say finding the program takes the longest time, just because you have to go through so many. You have to figure out what classes you are going to take, and then you have to figure out what classes will transfer over. So it's just a very long process. I started this, I knew I wanted to study abroad winter 22, and I started this over the summer. Like, this is what I did last summer, is just like look at all the classes, all the offerings and everything, and was just emailing my advisor. So it was a lot. I don't think it's set up well, but that's just what you had to go through. If someone else went through a different way, please let me know, because my poor advisors, I emailed them so much. Once you figure out what programs you're going to apply to, they usually recommend 2 to 3. You're going to go and apply on MCompass, as well as the program you are going to. So it's like technically 2 applications, but it's not that hard. I did have to get my passport expedited too, so make sure that you have that. But the MCompass application, you usually have to write an essay. It's like, why do you want to study abroad? Like, why do you think this international experience will help you? Very simple. Wrote mine, sent it in. And my program was different, where that's all I had to do. But some programs do require letters of recommendation from your professors. So with that, you're going to have to give your professors at least a couple of weeks to at least write a decent letter for you. And then once you apply for all of your programs, then you can rank them on MCompass. Some courses are competitive, like the language courses do tend to be more competitive. The ones in Spain do tend to be more competitive as well, just because everyone wants to go to Spain. Basically, you apply them, you rank them, and wait to hear back. And then once you hear back from your program, you decide which one you want to commit to, you enroll in the program. So for the pricing for these abroad programs, it really depends. Michigan does try to give you the lowest option. So if you're in state and the abroad program is more expensive, I think they just charge you your in-state tuition. For me, I'm out of state, so my abroad program is cheaper than Michigan in-state tuition. So that is nice. And then you can register for your classes abroad, and figuring out the housing process for your program. There are scholarships available for you. If you qualify for financial aid, there are LSA Study Abroad scholarships. If you do not, then there are programs that offer scholarships. So I applied for some scholarships within my program, and I actually got one. So that was exciting. And then finally, you're going to have to plan. You know where you're going. You know what classes you're going to fulfill. After you register for your abroad courses, there's a form that you have to send to your academic advisor and just make sure, like, hey, I'm going abroad. I'm fulfilling these requirements. You have to submit your financial aid forms and then book your flight, which is always very exciting. Try to look for the most direct flight, just because it lessens the chance of your luggage getting lost, or especially now with COVID, sometimes you need various like COVID tests to like get in and out and whatever. And then finally, figure out your Ann Arbor housing. Go watch my housing video to figure that out. But finding subletters is definitely very difficult in the second semester because everyone's going abroad. So good luck with that. And so here are just some of my things about CGIS in general. First of all, as you can tell, like MCompass is just awful, and the whole process is very confusing, I thought. I know I would often email my advisor or a advisor and just never hear back, or I had questions and like people wouldn't really respond to me, or I tried to make an appointment, just like wouldn't work. So I thought that I didn't really have very much help navigating CGIS. So maybe that might have just been my personal experience, but I was just felt very confused and lost. So I did kind of have to figure it out by myself. Obviously, the websites are not user friendly. And as I mentioned before, verifying your classes is extremely tedious. I guess there's no website that students can plug in the specific course at the specific institute and see if it transfers over. So it has to go through the advisor. So I was just constantly emailing and constantly like having to find these syllabi. And like sometimes I had to like email the college and be like, hi, do you have a copy of this syllabus that I could send to my advisor to see if this class would count for anything for me? So that was just very frustrating. The advisor that normally did Denmark, I don't know where she went, but she's no longer the advisor for Denmark anymore. So like new people for Denmark had to step in and they weren't really sure because they had never done the program. So it was just kind of a mess and very difficult to navigate. My best tips is to start looking early. I probably had to go through about 10 programs just to see what offering, like what classes would count, because that was the biggest issue for me. Here were the deadlines that I think I kind of found. So spring and summer abroad, these are often shorter programs. So if I did the French program, I think it was only like 8 weeks or something. My friend Alexa actually did a program over the summer after her freshman year in Ireland, where she like got to fulfill like 2 classes in engineering, which was really cool. So the spring and summer ones are more like smaller classes, maybe like fulfill, I don't know, like 1 or 2 requirements. But if you want to do the fall abroad deadline, which is usually much less popular just because fall has all the football games and the tailgates and just nicer Ann Arbor weather, you have to do that early March. And then winter abroad is obviously the most popular. Winters in Michigan is terrible. Um, but that deadline is usually early September. You hear back late October, early November, I think. I was in a different situation just because my program told me literally at the beginning of September if I got in or not. So I would say start looking as early as possible. And especially with COVID, you never know what programs are getting canceled. And then also make sure to meet with your advisors. My psych advisor was super helpful. My academic advisor was also very helpful. Try to meet with as many people as you can just to make sure what classes you're going to take abroad will actually transfer over. And I would say to just start on the CGIS website, even though I'm really not a fan of it, but just kind of go through this, see what you want to do. There's a bunch of programs, like you could do this one if you're a freshman. But yes, and now we're going to hear a few words from Erika, who's currently in London, because we are both studying abroad. So she definitely had a bit of a different experience than I did. So here are her tips.
Hi Maddsters, it's Erika making a guest appearance from home. As you can see from the mess next to me, I'm getting ready to study abroad. I'm going to UCL in London and I'm super excited. But my 2 big tips for the Study Abroad app are to start planning early and to have a backup plan. So I would say like for planning, you just have to look at like all the different requirements for the different programs because they all require something different, and the due dates because there are different due dates for different programs. Like some of the programs require recommendations, so then you have to figure out like who you want to get a recommendation from, what forms you need to fill out, make sure your passport's up to date, all that kind of stuff. It's also super important to have a backup plan. So for me, I really wanted to go to Australia, and I started planning for Australia and started filling out the forms, writing the essays, planning my classes, all that. And then a couple weeks before the app was due, they canceled the Australia trip and I had no backup plan, and I really wanted to study abroad. So then I was looking at different programs and I found the London program, which I was super interested in. But the thing was, it was due like 3 weeks before the Australia program. So I basically had a week to fill out the application, do all the forms. I had to get 2 recommendations for that, where Australia had no recommendation. So that was stressful, finding teachers who would be willing to do the rec within a week. And I also applied to another program in London in case the first one didn't work out, because I learned from my mistakes that it's always good to have a backup plan. So those are my two big tips. Good luck.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you, Erika, and I miss you, and I'll see you maybe somewhere in Europe. We'll see.
Well, Maddsters, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for all of my fun study abroad adventures. So excited. I've been wanting to study abroad for literally, I don't even know for how long, but I feel like it's just a really great part of the college experience that I'm very excited to go on, and like very grateful for the opportunity to do. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. about the application process, and feel free to DM me about anything else. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye, Maddsters!